everyone, it's Dina and welcome back. I'm working with some beautiful beads from this month's Beads of the Month Club, which is the Firepolished Club, and I've come up with a really fun bracelet design to share with you. So let's grab your supplies, which are listed down below as well as on the next screen. Meet me back and we'll start working on it. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do on this bracelet that's going to end up looking kind of like a little cha-cha bracelet, we're going to put a stop bead on. So I'm going to take one of my 8/0s and put it on my thread and needle. I'm going to pull it down to the end of the thread just to leave a comfortable amount that you can hold on to, and you're going to use this to tie off with at the end as well, because we're going to use this stop bead in our product as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go back through the 8/0 in the same direction as the thread one more time, just to kind of keep things from sliding off. What we're going to do next is add our button. Now I'm using a table cut button, but you can actually use any type of button that you have in your stash, whether it's a button that has a shank on it, one of the little loops down on the back of it, or even you can be using a button that you have maybe stashed away from in your closet somewhere that you got on either like a pair of slacks or a jacket. Sometimes PJs come with extra buttons. You could be even using those, because a lot of us don't use those extra buttons and they just get thrown in a little container in our closet somewhere and we never use them. So you can pull those out for this too and just pick a color that goes along with whatever beads that you're using. The other good thing about this bracelet is that you can literally use anything. You don't have to be using exactly these beads if you don't have them, but you could get these exact beads over here. If you use my discount code DINA10 with adornable elements, then you would be receiving these same beads on a monthly basis as well. So just a little shout out to that, just in case you're interested. But like I said, you can actually use any type of beads whatsoever on this one. So to start off, we're going to go ahead and add our cut button. So I already have my little 8/0 as my stop bead on the end. I'm going to add 3 11s, and then I'm going to go up through the back side of my button and then pull that down, pull it way off the screen, pull that down, and then I'm going to decorate the top of the button. I'm going to go ahead and add an 8, an 11, and an 8, just to kind of give it a little bit of a texture on the top of the button. I'm coming out of the left-hand hole right now of the button. I'm going to go down the right-hand hole. And then that just gives it a little bit of an extra little color there on the top. And then I'm coming out the back of it again. I'm going to add 3 more 11s. And then I'm going to go back through the 8/0 in the same direction. So I want my 8/0 to sit like this. Now if you were to go back in the 8/0 this direction, then it's going to sit like that on the bracelet. You can literally do it either way. I just prefer to do it this way. So I'm going to go through the right side, coming out towards the left. Usually whenever I use buttons, I will go through these beads one more time, but we're going to be going up and down this bracelet so many times that we're gonna reinforce it a couple of times anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Now the next thing that you want to do is you want to start adding your core beads. Your core beads, we're going to use the 3mm fire polish. Now this completely depends, as far as how many to add, completely depends on the length of the bracelet that you want to use. So I'm not going to make you watch how many of these I'm going to put on, but it is approximately 9 of these per inch. So depending on what size bracelet that you wear or that you're making, and today I'm going to make a bracelet that is probably about a 7.5 inch bracelet. So I'm going to need to add 9 sets of 7, which is 63 math really quick on the fly sometimes doesn't work for me, but so I'm going to adding 63 just to get the 7 inches, and then I'm going to be adding that extra half, which is going to be 4 to 5 beads. So I'm probably going to add about 67, 68 beads, somewhere around in there. And I'm going to measure it just to see what it's going to be like, because whatever type of closure that you're using, you always have to keep that in mind also. But I'm going to add about 63 of these beads, and then I will meet you back and I'll show you how to do the loop to go around the cup button, and then we'll start doing our fringe. So I'll meet you back in just a moment. Okay, so I have all my beads already strung on to my bracelet, and things actually do happen where we do make mistakes. So on the previous clip I said I was going to add about 68-ish beads to be able to get a 7.5 inch bracelet. I forgot to add the extension of the clasp. So the clasp that I'm using, the button and everything, that's going to be anywhere from about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, just depending on how big your loop is of length to your bracelet, and I forgot to do that. So I actually ended up only adding 55 of my core beads. So it really just kind of depends on what type of length and everything that you want. Just keep that in mind, and then I always just do a flat length like this, or measurement like this, and to figure out exactly how many beads and everything that I need. But this ends up being 55. So what we're going to do on this end of the bracelet is we're going to make the loop to go around the cup button. So how many beads do you need for that? I'm going to make the loop look similar to the beginning, where we start off with an 8/0. I already have my beads already strung on, so you don't have to watch me pick up so many beads. But I have one of the 8/0s already strung on there on the thread, and then I have 27 of the 11/0s already strung on. Now this number is also going to depend, the counts are going to depend on exactly what it is that you're using, and the type of beads here, and then the type of clasp that you have. This, if I remember correctly, I think is a 14 millimeter, it may be a 12 millimeter in diameter of a button, and 27 beads usually fits around just fine. Now the brand of the beads is also going to depend on how many that you're going to be adding. I'm using the Miyuki brand, so Toho's is going to be a different count. The check glass on the 10/0s are going to be a different count, so it really just depends on what you're using. So how do you check to make sure that you have enough beads, or if you need to take on or take off some beads? After you get everything strung on the end of the thread, go back through your 8/0 one more time to create your loop. And then what I usually do is I put the working thread around my finger, and then I hold on to the rest of the bracelet down here with my thumb and the rest of my fingers. And you can see that I'm putting a lot of tension on the working thread. I'm doing the same thing with the bracelet. The reason for that is I'm going to take my button and I'm going to practice getting it through that loop. If it goes through the loop with just a little bit of tension, like it did just then we're probably going to be okay. We're going to be going back through this loop at least one more time, if not 2 more times, just depends on how many times you go up and down the bracelet and everything. But you want to go through this loop at least twice, so keep that in mind. But you want to make sure that your button will go through this loop without any extra thread. Your beads aren't spacing, they're not, your beads are not coming apart like that, where you'll see some thread spaces and things like that. That's what you're trying to keep that from happening. So just make sure that you have enough beads on there to where it's just a little bit tight to where you can get through it, because once we go through this passage at least one more time, if not 2 more times, then it's going to end up getting a little bit tighter. So once you're happy with that, we're going to move on to the next step. So I'm coming out of the right hand side of the 8/0 at the moment. I'm going to continue through the next 3 of my core beads, and we're going to start adding some of our fringe. And then once you do that, you just want to kind of tug on everything, make sure everything is kind of sitting the way you want it to sit. I'm Just playing around with it and everything, just kind of massaging the beads around and all, just making sure that my loop is sitting in the way that I want it to sit. Now we're going to start adding that fringe. The fringe on this first round is going to be a 3mm fire polish, your crystal rondelle, your hill bead going through the flat side first, coming out the top, and then one of the 15s. And then pull that all down to your bracelet, so it's going to look like that. Then we're going to go back down through these beads, skipping over that 15, so that's going to end up looking like a little picot. And then go through your hill, your rondelle, and your 3mm fire polish. And then just take a little bit of a tug on your thread to make sure everything's tight, everything that sits there, and your little 15-0 should just have a little small little color there at the top of the beads. So now we're going to go back through the core, going in the direction of the cup button right now. I'm going to go through 4 beads this time. The reason for this is I'm just trying to space everything out to where these are, I use up all of my hill beads in this pass, and but there's still enough space in between everything to make it look kind of somewhat even. I'm not looking for a perfect symmetrical type bracelet, but on some of the beads it's nice if it looks a little symmetrical. So I'm adding my 4 beads that I need, and then pull it down, and then we're going to go back through the beads, skipping over the 15, back down to the core, give it a little bit of tug so it sits nice, and then go back in the next 3 beads. So we're going to add this little section 3 beads away, and then the next one will be 4 beads away, and so on and so forth till you get to the other side. So once you get to the other side, meet me back, and then I will show you how to go around that cup button, just in case you're not familiar with it, and then we'll start the next part of the fringe. Alright, so I have just added my last little fringe on this little first pass down the bracelet. So I'm coming out of currently the fire polish that's on the fringe itself. So if you're not familiar on how to go through your loop of your button, then we're going to do that real quick, and then I'll show you the next little portion that I'm going to add down the other side of the bracelet. So we're going to continue through those last 3 of our core beads, and then making sure you're not wrapping around stuff, because eventually it's going to be kind of that, unfortunately. You're going to have a bunch of beads that you're going to have to make sure that you're not wrapping around the thread's not wrapping around the beads. So right now you can see how my 8/0 is kind of sitting wonky as far as the direction of the core beads itself. So remember, I want the beads to sit in this direction. So in this pass right now, we need to be going through that 8/0 just like that, from the right going to the left. And when you do that, that should help kind of position that bead to sit a little bit better on the bracelet. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to help it sit a little bit better. See how it's not quite so on its side anymore. So we're going to continue up the 3 beads on the left hand side of the button, and then go through the whole of the button. If you catch on to the beads in the center, perfectly fine. The beads in the center you can actually do in 2 different ways. You can go ahead and go through those 3 beads, which I'm going to go ahead and do because I'm using bigger size beads. If you're using a bunch of 15/0s, sometimes it's really hard to catch on to those beads. So if you can't catch on to these, and if you're going through the second or the third pass and you can't catch on to the beads, as long as you go through these beads at least twice, then you should be fine. So I'm trying to continue through the 3 seed beads there on the decoration of the button. Then I'm going to continue down the right hand hole of the button and the 3 seed beads afterwards if I can, just like that. And then I'm going to proceed through the 8/0 in the same way that we just started. just like that. Now I'm going to flip it in my hands just so it's easier for me to hold and to demonstrate my next little step. So we're coming out of that right hand hole when I flipped it of the 8/0. And then what we're going to do on this next part, this next fringe, is I'm either going to go either 1 or 2 beads after the first fringe. So depending on if it's a row of 3, like this first section is a row of 3 of the core beads. So I'm going to come out of the first one. When I get to the 4 in between the two fringe portions, then I'm going to come out in the middle right there. So I'm either going to come out that first one or in the second one. So we're going to come out there, and then on this round I'm just going to add the majority of the rest of my rondelles, and then I'm going to add 3 of my 11/0s. We're going to let those drop down to the bracelet. Hold it in the right direction here, Dina. There we go. Have those drop down to the bracelet. We're going to skip those 3 11/0s that we just added and then go back through the rondelle. So it's similar to what we just did in the last pass. The only difference is that we're adding 3 seed beads instead of just 1. And then sometimes like this, they end up not sitting in the correct way, which is fine. All you have to do is just get your needle up underneath there and play around with it, and then it ends up in a nice little picot stitch like that. See if you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Oh, and Cosmo is chasing the lizard again. That's what that was just then. So now to move on to the next one, go back through the core beads until you come out either 1 or 2 spaces after the next. Oh, here comes Kylie to help out. She just made my beads go everywhere. Oh my. Okay, so I have a mess to clean up after this, but get either 1 or 2 beads after your next little section. I'm going to clean up my little mess that Kylie just made, and then I will meet you back down at the other end and show you the next round of the fringe we're going to add. Okay, kitty cat mess cleaned up. Got it all straightened up again, and I got it back down to the end of my bracelet. I went ahead and I've already gone through the loop one more time, so that's always a good thing to do. We're going to go back down the bracelet towards the cup button again. So on this pass we're going to come out, go through our beads one more time, come out the core bead just after the first round that we did, which was where we used the fire polish and then the rondelle, the hill bead, and then a 15. So we're going to come out just past that one. The beads I'm going to add on this round are going to be a fire polish, an 8/0, and then 3 15s. And then that will help kind of get a little bit of a lighter color to our bracelet, because right now we're looking at a bunch of dark pink shades. So we're going to put a little bit of brightness into it. And we're going to skip over those 3 15s just like we did on this last one. Go back down the 8/0 and the fire polish. Make sure your beads sit the way that you want them to. And whenever they decide to sit right, then go back through your core beads again, going towards the cup button or your clasp of choice. And these are starting to get kind of full, but there's still room to move around. And then I'm coming out the bead, the core bead, just after the first round that we did again. And then I'll add the same beads again. Fire polish, 8/0, 3 15s. Skip your 3 15s, go back through your 8/0 and your fire polish, then continue down until you get to the bead after that first round. So go ahead and continue this all the way down to the other end. If you want to, you can go through your button one more time. You don't have to, you've already gone through it twice, but if you like to, then that's always a good thing to put more thread through it if you can. So go ahead and continue that, meet me back, and I'll show you the next thing. Alright, so I am coming out of the 11-0 sitting right after the cup button here, and just before the 8-0 that we used to attach the cup button with. Now what I'm going to do on this section is I'm going to take the thread bridges that we wrapped around to begin with to use this as a stop bead. I'm going to attempt to take those off. And all you do is you just stick your needle up underneath the thread and then just try to see if you can unloop it from the bead, just like that. If it works, great. If you're having difficulties with it, or if you accidentally went through the thread itself, like you pierced the thread, because it can happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. But if that does happen, then don't worry about it. Just leave that thread path there, and you don't have to worry about it. The reason why I'm going to go ahead and do that is I'm going to go ahead and make a knot right here, but I'm still going to try to go down my bracelet 2 more times. I'm going to go down towards the end, the loop end, and then try to come back up 1 more time. I'm on this path going down towards the loop. I'll show you what I'm going to add, and then once I get down there, if I can't go back through the beads 1 more time because it's starting to get pretty thick in these fire polish beads, if it's getting too thick, then I'll just come back and show you how to tie off at the end. But I'm going to go ahead and just tie these 2 together, just do 1 knot. I'm not going to do anything special or anything specific other than just tying 1 knot, just like that, just an overhand knot. Then I'm going to proceed down in my fire polish, my base beads, until I come out in between a fire polish that I haven't used yet. And then that is actually going to be all the way down to this location. So as you can see, these were the round 1 that we added. These were the beads that we added in round 1. And when you look at the core beads here, you can already tell that we already added something in between these 2 beads right here. Then we added something else in between these 2 beads right here. So I'm trying to get to in between 2 of the core beads that we haven't added anything to yet. And then that's what I'm going to add this round. Just pull it tight. I'm just going to add just 1 8-0 and 1 11-0. And then just add this one in the same fashion. Pull it down to your thread, skip the 11-0, go back through the 8, and then proceed on until the next section that does not have anything in between the core beads. And of course, this is being difficult with me at the moment. So that's all I'm going to do on this next section. So I will end up going, let's see, where's the next one? Right here. So I'll end up moving my thread from over here all the way in between these 2 beads right here, and then do the same thing. And then, like I said, I'm going to get down to the end, and I'm going to try to see if I can go back up towards the button 1 more time. If it works, great. I'll come back and I'll show you what I add on that last section. If it doesn't work, then I'll come back and I'll show you how to tie off. So I'll see you back in just a second. Okay, so last pass. So I did do a couple of them already. As you can see, let's see if I can get it a little bit closer so you can see it better. So I did do a couple of them already. All I'm doing on this one is I started in between the first 2 core beads down here, and then I just came out and added an 11-0 and then a 15-0 and then just did the same thing. Now on the difference on this one is I'm adding this on every single bead all the way down. I'm adding an 11 and a 15. So it is working. I am getting some resistance because it is getting a little full. If you run into that, if you're running into a little bit too much of thread in your 1 core bead that you're using, you can get through that in a couple of different ways. You can always change your needle to a smaller size needle. Sometimes that helps. You can also try to pull your needle out of the core bead. Let me go through this bead real quick and I'll show you. So I'm attempting to get into this seed or this core bead right here. So this one. And if you can tell, it's kind of tight. It's not really going in there very easily. All you have to do is just take your needle out and then try a different direction. Sometimes I have to pinch these two down like this, the two sides down, and then it just releases that one bead, and then all of a sudden it makes it a lot easier to go through the one bead. So just be careful with the last couple of rounds, because there are going to be a lot of thread paths through those core beads. And then just make sure that when you're pulling down, you're going to run into other little portions, so just make sure that you got some tight thread in there and you're not skipping any beads, you're not wrapping around any beads, anything like that. And then when you pull down tight, then you should have a little seed bead decoration right there. And I'm just doing that just to kind of fill in and give the bracelet a little bit more of a lighter touch to it with the lighter colors and everything. So that's what this last pass is going to be. So I will meet you back down on this side, and then I will show you just quickly how to tie off, just in case you're not familiar with the I forgot what type of stitch it's called. Right over left, left over right type of tying. Anyways, I'll show you how to do that. So meet me back in a second and we'll get this bracelet completed. Alright, so I'm down back towards the cup button again. My working thread is over here off to the left, and then here is the starting thread on to the right. Now I've zoomed in a little bit so that way hopefully it'll be a little bit easier if you're not familiar on how to make I'm pretty sure it's called a square knot. It's a right over left, left over right. So I have the shorter beginning thread on the right again, my working thread, which is the long thread in the left. Now what I do is I cross the threads over to where it makes a loop. Then I take the short thread, I go over that crossover, and then through the loop, facing me once, and then pull that down. And then I make another loop, but going in the opposite direction to where the short piece of thread goes through the loop, but away from me. And then when you pull that down, you're tied. And that's all you have to do when you have something like this. And then the last little piece, let me see if I can zoom out again, because I'm afraid, camera's shaking a little bit, sorry. I'm afraid that's going to be really, really close and not focusing very well. So the last thing I'm going to do is just go back through just the 8/0 right here in the center. And I'm shaking a little bit right now. Kind of hard to get through that AO and shake at the same time. And then I'm just going to go back down a couple of these beads until I get in between the two of the core beads. Of course this would happen because I'm recording and I'm having issues trying to get through a bead. But this is similar to like what I was talking about in the last clip, where you just have to kind of take it a little bit at a time. And if you have to go through one bead at a time, then go ahead and do that. Don't force it because you don't want to break anything, because they are glass. Okay, so now I'm down over here. What I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to go ahead and go up through the first portion that we did, that first little round. So I'm going to go up through the fire polish that we added the first time. Make sure I'm not wrapping around anywhere, and then that's where I'm going to burn off. So now I just take my thread burner and go somewhat close, about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, close to the product. And then you just take your thread burner and you burn a little knot down close to where either the other knot is at or in between your beads like that. And then now you're tied off. And here is the finished bracelet. So I've already got it on the wrist, and here is the cup button on the other side. Now you may have your loop maybe a little tight at the moment. If that's the case, like mine was, all I did is I just took it on and off before I put it on my wrist. I took it on and off the button a couple of times to kind of loosen it up. That thread that's going through those beads are going to loosen up over time. So if it's really tight at the moment, just kind of wiggle it around and everything and try to loosen up the loop just a little bit, and then try to put it on your wrist and see how it works at that time. So here's the bracelet. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button, as well as leave a comment. I always like to read your comments. I will see y'all in the next video, everyone. I hope you have a great day. See you later. Bye.